Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Red Trees briefing on digital and social media in the current circumstances, which, as everybody knows, is significantly different to the world we lived in before. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend. We hope you're going to find the contents of this afternoon of value and of insight as well. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Red Tree, we are the UK's leading beauty brand consultancy. We work with a very wide mix of clients, and many of them global, so that we have a really good perspective on the total beauty business. And our role is very much to be the go-to company for vision, strategy, action, and implementation. My name is Sterling Murray. I'm the founder of the business. And one of the things that we are looking to do at this particular time is to make sure we give back as much as possible to those people that need help within the beauty industry. We had a very constructive roundtable a couple of weeks ago, and we wanted to follow this up with something that is obviously so important, which is digital and social in terms of how you communicate in the current climate. The world has changed. Things are very different to the way they were before, and social media now more than ever is instrumental as digital consumption has increased significantly. And so what we're aiming to do is really to try and learn how to communicate to your audience. And for all of us, this is the first time the world has ever faced a situation like this, and digital and social for many is the key way that we can communicate our activities. We're going to be delighted to take questions throughout the session. We'd also like to hear about your success stories and the challenges that you face and perhaps how you've overcome them. And if you haven't overcome them, by all means, seek advice through this event today so that we can help you and help everyone else. Okay, it now gives me great pleasure to hand over to Courtney. Courtney and Zoe are going to be handling this afternoon's event. Both of them are part of the Red Tree team, and their knowledge and understanding of social and digital is quite astounding. So please, let me hand over to Courtney first. Thank you.
Thank you, Sterling, for the introduction. So as Sterling mentioned, today we will be discussing digital and social media and how to communicate in the current climate. The topics we are going to cover include how to communicate with your audience, how content has changed, the impact of COVID-19 on paid advertising and influencer marketing, and the importance of community engagement. So the first topic we are going to really dive into is how you should be communicating with your audience. And the first point, which is really important, is not to just listen to and acknowledge your audience, but also to really pay attention to what is going on in the world and acknowledge the times that we are living in. Like Sterling mentioned, this is the first time the majority of people are actually living through a pandemic. And because this is the age of digital and social media, we have to, in a sense, relearn how to communicate with our followers. During these times, some brands may be even confused about whether or not they should even continue to promote themselves and their products. And it's really important to know that it is okay to do so, but to be honest with your audience and let them know that even if it does feel strange or weird to continue to advertise your products. I'm not sure if you all know this influencer, Kristen Cavallari. She's an influencer TV personality, and she's also a designer. And she has a jewelry company called Uncommon James, and she was completely honest with her followers and told them how strange it really felt for her to continue to be promoting her products during these really challenging times. But the reality of the situation is that companies still have employees to support, and they're really relying on sales to continue to do that. So in my opinion, it's honesty is really the best policy, and your audience will really appreciate that level of transparency from you, and may even feel a little bit more connected with you as a brand. So I wouldn't be afraid to really be honest with them. It's also important to acknowledge your audience and listen to them, and listen to the kind of content that they want to see from you. So it's really important to just reach out and ask them. The Body Shop is a really great example here to highlight, because they're constantly reaching out to their audience and sending them updated messages, letting them know that they're here for them, and they're asking their followers what content that they want to see from them. They're encouraging engagement that spreads positivity as well. So they recently shared a post last week asking their audience what acts of kindness they had seen, and how they're helping their communities, so that they can share their followers' stories with the rest of their audience, so that they can really spread this positive energy, which is something that we really need, especially right now. Um, Another point that's really important right now is to really be empathetic, and I don't think that this point can be overemphasized. People around the world are struggling, and that's a fact. Some of your followers may have lost their jobs and are trying to make ends meet. Some may be caring for someone who is sick. So it's just really important to be empathetic and compassionate in your approach and in the ways that you're communicating with your audience. But other than that, it's also really important to not stray away from who you are as a brand, because your followers are following you for that reason, for what you stand for. So if your voice is usually light and humorous, you can still post that kind of lighthearted content, because at the end of the day, some people just may really need a laugh, but you just need to make sure that your content is empathetic, and that it also doesn't really come off as being insensitive. So really, it's not only important to think twice about that kind of content that you're putting out there, but also to just have an extra set of eyes looking at the content before it goes out. One of the brands that really stood out to us is Glow Recipe, and they're really connecting with their followers on a more intimate level. They have addressed the reality of the situation and are completely honest and transparent with their audience. So as you can see in this image, they explicitly state that skincare doesn't hold a candle to our collective well-being, but they're continuing to post content on their page, because that's the kind of content that their followers want, and their goal here is to really help their followers get through these challenging times. They also encourage their followers to reach out to them and just ask them questions, or just talk to them if they need any advice or support. They've also created a separate community page called Real Glow Gang, which is, as they describe it, a safe space to celebrate diverse beauty through self-care and expression. And even though this page is private, they say everyone's welcome. All you really have to do is request to follow them. So another way brands can really communicate and connect with their audience is by providing them with useful content. So it's really important right now to adapt your content and turn your pages into valuable resources for your audience. So it's important to find out what it is your consumers want to see during these times, and figure out how you can help with the resources and knowledge that you have as a brand. So this is especially for brands who provide services rather than products. Brands can really focus on providing valuable and educational content to their audience. Treatwell, which is an online platform for beauty care appointments, are a really important an interesting example here, because they're sharing useful content with their audience. So how-tos and tutorials, which are really popular at the moment, but that's not the only way that you can generate valuable content. So valuable content also encompasses live webinars, sharing just educational content with your audience, and providing mindful sessions such as live yoga classes, or just even safe spaces where individuals can just vent and talk about their worries and their concerns. So just to reiterate here, find out what your consumers really need and figure out how you can help with the resources and knowledge that you have as a brand. So I know that we just went through quite a bit of information, but does anyone have any questions or even personal stories to share with everyone? We think that it's just really important to just learn from each other. So if you have any personal experiences that you would like to share, or just any points you would like to raise or add to this topic, we would just really be delighted to hear from you.
Courtney, we had earlier a question from Tyler Johnson, who had sent through a question, and I'm going to read it out on behalf of Tyler. It's, should the content or style of our social media change during these times?
Yeah, so before making any changes, you really want to make sure that you're reaching out to your audience and finding out what kind of content they actually want to see. So like I mentioned earlier, it's important to not stray away from who you are as a brand and your brand voice, because they are following you for a reason. But as for the kind of content that you should be posting, this is going to come into the next section. Zoe will be going over content and how it's changed, just to provide you with some further information on how you can really adapt your content and align it with the new normal.
Thanks, Courtney. I've unmuted you, Tyler, so if there's anything you would like to add to your question or anything you would ask in response to Courtney's answer, please do go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions on the topics that Courtney has covered? And if you have any questions at any point during the rest of the discussion, please use the raise hand feature in the participant panel, and we will come to you at the appropriate time to ask the question. I don't think there's any more currently, so we'll move on to the next section.
Okay.
So we're now going to focus on content and how it has changed. So initially, the sort of thing that we're going to be looking at is aligning with the new normal. Business isn't as usual, and content has shifted to reflect the times we're living in. Countless people are working from home and are having to balance their work with homeschooling their children, among many other things. Aligning your content with the realities people are facing will not only make you more relatable as a brand, but will also let your audience know that they're not alone. Consumers are craving connection, and this is echoed in the time people are spending on messaging services, which has increased by 31% in recent weeks. Longer length videos have also seen an increase in views, with more IGTV and live streams taking place every day. And I'm sure you've seen all of the live videos at the top of your Instagram feed on a daily basis. Social media has turned into a largely paid media outlet with less focus on the social aspect, but this has shifted in recent weeks and has brought people and brands together. An example we have here is of influencer Chriselle Lim. She's been very transparent about how she's adjusting to her new normal. This image, although humorous, shows her taking meetings in the shower as she feels overwhelmed with having to balance work with caring for her children. She shared her thoughts on how she's coping and managing her time effectively. She mentions how frustrated she was at the beginning and how that's normal and how it can take time to find a routine that works for you. She continues to post sponsored content, adjusting the copy to reflect our times. An example of that was that she recently collaborated with Stuart Weitzman. And although she was still promoting the brand, her tone of voice illustrates how you can still promote content without pushing sales onto your followers. She highlighted activities she will not take for granted in the future, as well as focusing on the causes that Stuart Weitzman is part of, which includes a foundation which helps small businesses in New York affected by COVID-19. And she lives in New York, so again, it's bringing that back to her personal experiences. Then focusing on mindfulness. So although it's important to address the times we're living in, it's just as important, if not more, to focus on being mindful and focus on our mental health. Sharing mindful content and reminding your followers to care for themselves and to practice self-care, whether it be reading a book, taking a nice bath, or taking breaks to FaceTime with family members throughout the day. Pi Skincare has recently been in the news for shifting their focus to manufacturing hand sanitizer. They launched a product called Action Spirit, which was launched with a campaign where customers can buy one and gift one, meaning customers' orders could help gift a product to NHS frontline workers, carers, or those in need via homeless charities or beauty banks. On their social accounts, they often share posts thanking their audience and spreading positive messages on their platforms. They share these posts as a gentle reminder to their followers to care and look after themselves, as well as engaging with followers and asking them to share their own self-care routines with others. Another great example is from Kiehl's, who has turned its Instagram page into a virtual mental health and wellness center. The brand has reached out to its audience for regular community check-ins to promote mental well-being during self-isolation. It's launched a series of free virtual well-being programs, ranging from mask and meditation to healthy skin happy hour sessions with its skincare experts. As people are spending 38% more time on social media than they ever previously have, they're paying more attention to the type of content that comes across their feeds. Individuals are demanding authenticity and honesty from brands and calling some brands out for taking advantage of the situation to increase sales. It's therefore important to adapt your content to reflect the times we are living in. Many brands and influencers have noticed an increased rate of engagement on their pages. This graph illustrates how nearly 80% of their users are more engaged now. This may be the result of increased social media usage. Facebook and Instagram have noted a 40% increase across their platforms, but it could also be the fact that people are posting less frequently as their bank of quality content dwindles and the platforms push their posts onto consumers' feeds more often. Do we have any questions on this topic? Okay, Courtney.
Courtney, okay to start?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I was still muted. Yeah. So the next section we are going to be covering is paid advertising and influencer marketing and how COVID-19 has impacted the two. So like Zoe said, because people are staying home, they have a lot of time to consume content. But this pandemic hasn't only altered how much we're consuming and what kind of content we're consuming, it has really forced brands to alter their social media strategies, which has resulted in lower demand for paid ads on Facebook, and you even see increased performance of organic content. Some brands are actually taking advantage of this opportunity and increasing their reach because of the lower cost of ads on Facebook. But because some brands have cut down their advertising budgets, the influencer industry has also been impacted. So influencer marketing their campaigns have been put on hold indefinitely. Influencers are reducing their rate, as you can see in this graph, on average by 20%. So now is really the time to run influencer campaigns and paid ads if you do have the budget to do so, because they can really help you increase brand awareness and help maximize your marketing spend. One tip that I recently read about that I found really useful and I really wanted to share with you all is that brands can also reach out to influencers that they have worked with in the past and ask them to share the content from previous campaign. So because most influencers shoot a lot of content for one campaign, this could be a win-win situation for both of you. And it could also increase your brand's awareness at a lower cost. So that's something to really look into and take under consideration. But it's also important to just remember that influencer campaigns and any other campaigns for that matter should never be about capitalizing on a crisis. Your goal as a brand should always be to provide value, deliver relevant messages, and really forge connections with your audience and different brands. So like Zoe mentioned earlier, consumers are demanding authenticity, and influencers have the ability to share your brand story in a way that really resonates with others, with your audience, as long as the content is authentic and that the influencers, their image and what they're saying is authentic as well. Because people can tell whether or not a brand or an influencer is being authentic and is genuine with the recommendations that they are making. So it's really important to do your research, because forming partnerships with anyone, before forming any kind of partnership with anyone, just to make sure that you just avoid any unwanted backlash on your brand. Are there any questions before we move on to the following section?
So Courtney, we received a question earlier before this began from Lara Philpott, which I feel is relevant to this section. So I'm going to read out the question, and it'd be great if you could answer, please.
Okay.
The question is, at the outset of this pandemic, we were truly in uncharted waters, but it has become apparent that social distancing in some form is going to be incorporated into our lives for some time. Despite pivoting our business to enable clients to carry on producing content with our home studio, as well as a flexible pricing approach to licensing our archive of specialist beauty and wellness imaging, many clients we know have taken the view of battening down the hatches and furloughing marketing departments, etc. So what is your view on the need to keep the wheels turning with quality content creation, and how do you advise clients with regards investment in marketing and communications during this time?
That's a really great question. So to answer this question, it really depends on a company's marketing budget. It might seem sensible in this short run, in the short run, to really cut your budget and pause your marketing activities. But I really think that it will be the companies who continue to push forward and continue to invest in their marketing that will really do well in the long run. But the key here is to really realign and reevaluate your social media marketing strategies. So like we mentioned earlier, find out what it is your audience wants to see and what they need from you, so that you can align your strategy to meet their needs and align it to meet the new normal. So ask yourself, what value can you deliver during these times using the resources and knowledge that you have? Now, as far as quality content, what is your view on quality content? I really think that it really depends. Consumers are going to, they're not spending a lot of time on focusing on the quality of your content. They're more focusing on whether or not it's authentic. So you really want to make sure that whatever you're putting out there, whatever content that you're creating is creative, but is authentic. So there won't be this level of judgment on whether or not a post is up to par as it would have been in a different situation.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. I'm going to unmute Lara and just see whether there's anything you wish to add, Lara, or any additional point you would like to question Courtney on.
I think when I said the word quality,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't necessarily mean, I wasn't necessarily meaning expensive and glossy.
Mm-hmm.
It was just quality in its creativity and its thought and its authenticity.
Yes, so definitely, yeah.
But as you say, in terms of, I completely agree. But also believe that the companies that continue to push forward and align their strategies are the ones that are going to do well. Just our experience at the moment is everybody that we have dealt with that had projects in the pipeline, they're all postponing until potentially next year. But I do think that, you know, that is maybe a little short-sighted.
Yes, I think that, yeah, you're definitely right on that. People think in the short term, especially in times of crisis, but it's important to think long term and think of the way of how you're going to get out of here, out of this situation, hitting the ground running. And that's what you want to do. And in the beauty roundtable that we had 3 weeks ago, that's what we really spoke about really planning during these times to really hit the ground running when things return not back to normal, but where back to some sense of normalcy.
Absolutely. Many thanks for answering.
Can I just answer another point of your question? Because I think that there's sort of 2 points you made, Laura, which are extremely valuable for everybody, which was the first one about your clients battening down the hatches. And that's not, in many ways, surprising. I think what happened 5 or 6 weeks ago with the first lockdown sent everybody into a state of shock, whether they were big businesses or large businesses or, you know, medium size or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. I think the events that led up to the lockdown and the first week of the lockdown were, for all of us of any age and any experience, probably one of the most awful things to have gone through, and particularly so if you are running a business. But I also think your comment about keep the wheels turning are very, very true, because, you know, as with everything, it's not, we control very little. As individuals, we like to think we control lots of things, but we don't. We don't even control something like the weather, which is so fundamental to our well-being. You know, we've enjoyed 2 weeks of glorious sunshine and it's raining today and there's nothing we can do about it. But what is important is how you react to those events. And I think for every business, there are a number of choices they can face. And keeping the wheels turning, you have to find a way of doing it. And quality content helps, being really creative, being clever and wise in terms how you spend any marketing investment. All of those things keep the wheels turning. And, you know, as we said at the last round table, that if you don't do that, other people are. So it means that when things do eventually ease up, when your clients do eventually want to return to projects, you're in a position to meet them and meet them, you know, extremely well. And so I'm sort of adding more general lines to what Courtney answered you, but you know, I think that's the only choice you have, really, as a businessman, an entrepreneur. You have to do that. So thank you anyway. Very good question.
Okay, I'm now going to go to a question from Rachel.
Hi guys. So one of the things I was saying recently is that influencers are sort of struggling in the current climate for relevance because of a lot of what they post is kind of based on the outside world. So as a result, obviously, they're going to have a hunger for content. I'm wondering, is it worth exploring working with influencers on collaborative, unpaid content, such as positive approaches to lockdown for self-care, meet the maker content, because it could be quite authentic and open you up to a new audience as a brand?
Yes, I completely agree with you, because influencers do have this ability to really connect with your audience and share content that really resonates with them. So it would be a great idea to be able to collaborate with them in that sense.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's definitely something worth exploring, and just it allows you to control your message a little bit more as well, I think.
Definitely. But you just want to make sure that whoever you do partner with, who you do your research on them, and make sure that they do align with your brand and your messaging and your mission as a brand, just to avoid any backlash at your end. So it's really important to just do your research on the influencers that you plan on partnering with.
Thank you, Rachel, for that question. We now have one more question from Michelle.
Hi, everyone. So my question is, how often should we be posting content on social media? Frequency. What frequency should we be putting up new posts?
You should continue to be posting as usual. So if you're posting on a day-to-day basis prior to the pandemic, I think it's really important to continue with what you were doing before. You want to continue posting on a regular basis just because you want to maximize your reach. And if your followers are really engaging with your content, it doesn't really make sense to limit that content and to just pull away from social media, especially because people are spending so much time on social media nowadays. Zoe, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say I think the sort of frequency, if it is something that you can continue with, please do. But I think obviously keeping in mind the change of content itself. Mm-hmm. As long as you're adapting that, then I think it's fine to keep up the consistency of posting. And like we've been saying all the way through this, if you keep that up when you come out the other end, you will be stronger than people who have sort of sat back and not posted as much.
Great, lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to move on to community engagement. So many industries and individuals around the world, as you know, have been severely impacted by the pandemic. Our communities are important, and if this pandemic is teaching us anything, it's that we are all connected. Like Millie Kendall mentioned in our beauty roundtable a couple of weeks ago, everyone is pulling together. Journalists are taking to Instagram like brands and are using that as a place to share content and really express their own brand. Keep a lookout and become part of what they are about. Influencers and brands alike are using their platforms for good and encouraging their followers to share their stories and businesses on their platform so that they can reach more people. So we've included here an example of BeautyCon, who has over 500,000 followers on Instagram. And although they often share light-hearted beauty content, they also post content to support small businesses, allowing companies to increase their visibility in hopes of staying afloat. The founder and CEO of BeautyCon, Moj Fadara, has created a campaign called Beauty United, which sees brand founders, including Victoria Beckham, Charlotte Tilbury, and Bobbi Brown, who are coming together to spread a message of unity in the fight against COVID-19. The aim is to use the combined power of their brand platforms to support frontline workers, including doctors and nurses, by organising a fundraising drive and donating essential supplies where possible. Aromatherapy Associates is another brand that is also supporting their community by encouraging their audience to participate in their campaign to send packages to the NHS by asking customers to like their Instagram page and then nominate their NHS team or an NHS team they know who deserves some self-care. This brand is a great example of how you can do good without pushing sales, but also increasing your visibility and reach. It's a great way to get your followers involved and engaged, as many people at home are looking for ways that they can also help. It's okay to ask for help. So many of us are struggling right now, and it's important to know that. Many accounts with large followings are encouraging their followers to share their stories and how they can help. Take advantage of opportunities to participate in online webinars and ask questions. There are webinars running at the moment which are hosted by experienced industry and brand leaders who have invaluable insight into how they're handling the situation in their fields. It's important to be informative and clear about what you do and what you're asking for. We're all in this together, and now more than ever, people are coming together to help each other, whether that's by helping a neighbor or someone vulnerable in your community, or virtually advising a colleague or a brand on how you are navigating the crisis. The previous example illustrates how brands are supporting their communities, and this example illustrates how you can share your story and ask for help on these platforms. This brand highlights how they would love to collaborate with other brands and influencers, an invitation for others to reach out to them. And finally, keep on posting. People, as we've mentioned, are spending a lot of time online, more than ever before. It's important to stay present and to continue to connect with them. Be mindful of the type of content that you're posting, and make sure you are empathetic and show compassion towards your audience. Above all, share positive messages to help support and uplift your community. LVMH has also appeared in the news over the last several weeks. They have been continuously sharing and supporting their community. They've participated in campaigns like this one with Bite Beauty, encouraging their audience to share content of their moments at home. They've also started a series called News from Home, which shares thoughts and advice from brand creatives and founders on how they're coping in lockdown and what they need to do to keep busy and what they do to find a mental escape in their own way. Are there any questions on this section before we go over the key takeaways for this?
We've got a question that's come in from Aman, so I'm going to find him here. Amar, sorry, and I'm going to unmute you, Amar, now so that you can ask your question. Amar, you there?
Hello?
Hi, Amar, we can hear you. Please ask your question.
I was just trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I was just interested in finding out how to approach, micro influencers. My project is still a startup, looking at natural skincare products. So, just wondering. Yeah, I completely understand the value of influencers, but how do we do that? And if we have to start with micro influencers, how do we do that?
Well, approaching influencers can be as easy as just sending them a direct message on Instagram and asking whether or not they would be interested in partnering with you and collaborating with your brand for a specific campaign. So it doesn't really need to be complicated, and you don't really need to complicate your approach. So just directly message them and ask them whether or not they'd be interested.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We also have a question from Saha. So Saha, I'm going to unmute you now, and if you'd like to ask your question, please.
Oh, hi. My question was exactly what Amar asked, so thank you. I've got my answer. I'm just writing it down.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the key takeaways.
Okay, so just some key takeaways. I understand that you have all just processed a lot of information, but we have just deduced it into just a few key takeaways. So number one, it's really important to just keep posting on social media and keep posting as usual. And be mindful of the kind of content that you're sharing. So ask your audience what it is that they want to see and what kind of content would bring value to them, and align your content to really reflect the new normal, because it's really important to listen and acknowledge the current situation and the times that we're living in. So yeah, again, turn your page into a valuable resource for your audience. So it's really important to include your audience in this conversation and reach out to them and make sure that you do have this open air of communication with them, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So it's really important to just find out how we can all contribute and share with each other and bring value to one another. It's also really important to just be honest with your audience and transparent about your activities on social media. So if there is something that may feel strange to you, it's okay to just be honest with them and let them know that it's a strange time for you, or even just being transparent in the sense where if you are an influencer, a beauty influencer, to just like Chriselle Lim has done, where she is completely honest with her audience and letting her know that it's not normal, and adjusting has been very difficult, and your audience will appreciate that as well. So at the end of the day, it's just really important to just remember that we're all in this together, and we're all really relearning how to communicate with one another during these times. And we're all here to support our communities and to support each other in whatever capacity that we can.
Okay, great. So we have a question from Addison. So I'm going to unmute you now, Addison, to ask the question. Hi, Addison. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me? Hi. I am in this call from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm sure you have all seen in the news that our governor has allowed us to open.
Yes.
I own a makeup and brow studio, and we do some hair as well, but we're primarily a makeup and brow studio, and we're preparing to reopen. And so and I've actually been interviewed on CNN and on NBC, and I'm about to be interviewed on Fox News. So the media has been reaching out and giving us a lot of attention here because we are on the front lines of reopening. And so, you know, I'm using obviously this attention to support my business as well, because, you know, being in a service, we're, you know, primarily service based and trying to transition online as much as possible. So I'm also, you know, reaching out to lots of other communities that I'm a part of and sharing the media content as well. But I was just wondering, has anybody else that we know of in the community, you know, inside of our industry, because, you know, this is unknown territory for all of, you know, we're the first ones opening. Like, what are we going to look like, and how are we going to approach this, you know, as we start to open, you know? So I would love any suggestions that you have on how to position this and how to, you know, how to unfold the re-entry process, I suppose.
Alison, thank you for that question. And it's not an easy one to answer at all, and it will be interesting to get the opinion of others. I mean, I think it puts you under some degree of pressure. It really does, because you have to approach it using some of the values that both Courtney and Zoe mentioned. You know, empathy in terms of how you deal with any questions your clients will have, what other, you know, how you handle it with the press. I don't think there's an easy answer, and I don't think there's a prescriptive answer either. I think every business has to look at how they communicate. And it's also interesting. It isn't just social and digital, although that was the point of today's briefing. It's everything you do. It's how you let your clients know via email, what you do on LinkedIn. That sort of same tone has to be approached, totally in that way. I don't know, for example, if you have point of sale material or collateral within your studio, whether you have, windows that you put product, you put product or posters in. All of it has to be approached very sensitively and in a way that is not boasting, but really emphasizing what you're there for and the value you give to your clients. And people will understand.
I also think, obviously, the guidelines that your government has put in place, all of those need to be followed in terms of, like Sahara's mentioned in the chat, health and safety. I don't know if you maybe want to stagger appointments so that people aren't overlapping and there's not sort of, people arriving at the same time. I think, obviously, there's stories that have come out from China where, things have started to open up, but people are still concerned. They're still nervous about, starting to do the normal things that they did before all of this happened. So I think, as Sterling said, you do need to be sensitive to that. And if people, they sort of don't want to be, within 2 meters of other clients, you have to respect that, and you have to put those sort of boundaries and restrictions in place. And slowly over time, I think things will return to normal.
I know that Saha has made an answer comment on the chat box. So Saha, if you don't mind, I'm going to come to you and see if you want to expand on the point that you've made in answer to Alison's question. Saha?
Hi. So I didn't get her name. Was it Alison?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Alison. Hi. So I don't know. I work from within a GP practice. So for me, I think the answer to your question, how would you go back? I'd go back as normal, because everyone knows the situation. It's not a hidden one, and everyone's on the same boat. Everyone has the same fears, same worries, same uncertainties. And just putting myself as one of my own patients, or for example, your clients, I would just want to be assured and just know that I'm heard. So I don't think from our side anything needs to be changed. They just need assurance, that's all. I think, well, call me naive for thinking it's that simple, but I know it's not. But I think that's what people are looking for.
I would completely agree. Assurance and honesty. So just being completely honest with them and telling them that you're open to any suggestions as well. So if, like she said, if they do feel uncomfortable and want to be 2 meters away from the next client, just being flexible in that sense as well, and
Yes.
being honest with them, and telling them. And I know that there's this one barber shop in Colorado that I saw on the news, and they're providing gloves, masks, and hand sanitizer in their studio. So that's maybe something to also maybe.
Yeah, we have serious protocol here. We have very serious, like it's gonna look like a hospital in here. I mean, that's like, I mean, I'm really lucky. And it's funny because my company is actually called Authentic Beauty. And so, that's my home message, is the authenticity piece as it is. We've grown in engagement. I actually had like a 50% open rate on my last email. I mean, a 50% open rate on an email, right?
That's incredible. Yeah.
We've had we've raised over $4,000 for our team here on a GoFundMe campaign. And we have incredible consumer response and engagement and all of that. But I just feel like I'm front lines for us all opening. And, I've been very transparent about the whole process, and in hoping to also be, be a leader in this as well. Those of us in Georgia have really, the salon industry in particular has bound together. I'm very concerned about how what's going to happen to our makeup world as we move forward. I'm very, very concerned. You know, like I've been grieving. I'm actually been a professional artist for over 30 years, and I'm grieving at the loss of being able to do that craft, because everybody is going to be wearing masks for I can't tell you how long. So, you know, I'm really working to bring an online platform to bring the services that we provide here to people at home, and been working on. Yeah.
Sorry, Alison, may I ask, why are you worried? Because people wear masks? I mean, maybe that's something, in my opinion, then maybe we need to change our mindsets, because makeup isn't just to show the world. So I think it's a time where we're changing mindsets. People wear makeup to make them feel good. I mean, I personally don't wear makeup because it's just, I don't believe in it. But I think if that's your worry, I think maybe perhaps the best thing you can do for yourself and your business and for your clients at the moment is just have a strategy of changing mindset. That's just my opinion. So maybe you can do more with it, so much more with it, on having different levels of campaigns. So what if they wear masks? You know, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's where we're headed with it. I just mean in general, the physical, we won't be able to actually do makeup applications in our business for quite some time. You know, it's a revenue, you know, it's a revenue loss in terms of actually physically touching. So we're going into the virtual space with that. But, you know, myself personally, you know, I'm part of the entire community of professional artists, you know, here in the United States, and, you know, nobody's working, and nobody knows how long this is going to go on. And, you know, the standard isn't inside. It's just a very huge consideration how we're going to move forward, And we haven't peaked with the disease here yet in Georgia, and the doors have opened. So, you know, actually, you know, for our safety is also a huge concern.
Thank you, Alison and Saha. We also had a comment from Tony in the chat section about this question. So Tony, I'm going to come to you now and see if there's anything you would like to add to the discussion.
I think I would just echo what's been said. I think there's probably 2 or 3 things from the message. The first thing is about feeling comfortable yourself, because you need to feel comfortable to help others to feel comfortable. And therefore you need to take the steps, I think, that you feel are necessary to give yourself that positivity and that sort of emotional support that you're going to need yourself. There will be people coming in, I'm sure that it will be their first interactions with non-family and friends, and they probably want a hug, and they'll want to do some of the things that people haven't done for a long time. So it's being mindful of that before you open the door, and knowing how you're going to deal with some of those more interpersonal things. I think the other thought that I had while Saha and yourself were talking was around education. And probably this period, more than anything, from what I've seen from influencers through to brands, is that there is a wealth of experiential and educational learning that can happen. And why not make your space a fantastic place for self-help? You know, brands like Charlotte Tilbury, for example, do an awful lot to help people to create the looks themselves. And really, that imparting of knowledge in your makeup artistry could be phenomenal if you have the space to help that self-education. And from that, self-confidence will come from the individuals as well. So, you know, I think we all would benefit. You know, I watched a video about cutting my fringe the other day because it's getting so long. And, you know, we all need a little bit of that self-help and learning. And you would be perfectly positioned to encourage a studio of learning as much as it is a place for people to come and visit and buy.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's exactly where we're headed.
Great, sounds fantastic. I wish you great luck. I really do.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'll take all the good energy over here. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make that transition.
Oh, you'll be amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those answers from Saha and Tony, and just in case I've missed anybody else out, and for your question, Alison. I think one of the points that Saha actually made in the notes, which weren't mentioned, is that you're probably, Alison, going to hear some sad stories. I think from this pandemic. All of us are going to have our own individual stories that we share. And I think that you will find, you have to be emotionally strong to cope with them. And from our perspective, I think that's probably going to be the same for everybody, that things have changed, not for the better. There is light at the tunnel, and hopefully things will go back in some way to what they were over a period of time. But being emotionally strong, and particularly in your profession, is you're used to hearing stories. It just may be that you're going to hear lots more sad stories than you would expect. So thank you, everybody who attended. It's been great. Thank you very much for your questions and insights and thoughts. We hope you found this briefing session valuable. There will be a feedback form to complete. And if anybody does want to talk to the Red Tree, we've recently set up a new social and digital program, which we can explain to you about. Or if you just really want to use us for a sounding board and just to discuss any ideas you may have, please do not hesitate to contact us. We'd be delighted to hear from you. And on that last note, may I just wish everybody the ability to stay safe and well. And we look forward to you joining us at any further briefing sessions we do. So thank you all.